I'm Dan Fine, and welcome to Future Considerations, my podcast about things you need to think about for a better future before it's too late. You can't go very long when looking into the drug crisis without hearing about harm reduction. But what actually is harm reduction? Harm reduction essentially boils down to reducing the harm to people's health when they're on drugs. But where does the idea come from? For that, we must go back to the 90s. Ah, yes, the 90s. The birth of rap music, and of course, fashion that will not be topped. But unfortunately, in Portugal, people were suffering. Portugal was in the grips of a drug crisis, with 100,000 people addicted. Portugal had to do something, so they tried something drastic. They decriminalized all hard drugs. But with Portugal's success, is decriminalization the fix here in BC? So I thought I'd sit down with an expert.
My name is Blake Anderson. I'm the programs manager at Umbrella Society. So with Umbrella, we help any individual struggling with substance use and concurrent mental health challenges. And that can be as much as, ensuring that, some of the systematic barriers are getting knocked down for them. So, getting ID, getting them on housing lists, but also, the big one is accessing treatment supports, such as detox and stabilization and inpatient treatment, and trying to make a battle plan towards someone entering the world of recovery and getting off of substances.
I apologize for the low audio quality in this interview. You need to meet people in this field where they're at, and fortunately, this was a place I could meet Blake. Back on topic. So I asked him what he thought of decriminalization here in BC and the Safe Supply program that has been established by the BC government.
You know what? To be honest, the Safe Supply, the way that I've seen it being administered, does not work. And the reason being, on paper, it's a great idea. Obviously, if people are taking a controlled substance, they're going to have a better chance of not having fatalities. Problem is, right now, the reality is the Safe Supply that is being distributed is not strong enough. And it really kind of goes against the nature of addiction. The nature of addiction is because it's going to give you the best high. And Safe Supply is not doing that. So what happens is people get subscribed Safe Supply, and they actually will turn it around and sell it on the street for next to nothing. A lot of times it's getting into the hands of kids, and they're going to take whatever money they can and buy the harder, stronger drugs that are potentially fatal, but that's really essentially what people are looking for. The hard part is, it was an eye opener for me. I remember when the fentanyl crisis was like that first hit and was in really in the spotlight. And I was working frontline at the time, and I had all these fentanyl testing strips. And when my clients tested, drugs, and they were really upset because there was no fentanyl in it. So the desire was fentanyl, even though it was this toxin that was killing everybody, that was the strongest drug people can get. And so I think the problem with Safe Supply is it's not recognizing the nature of addiction, that they're always going to need to push for more and more because they're trying to chase the strongest high they can get. And so then the other problem is there's always going to be the next toxic drug that's going to be out there. And the next toxic drug is actually the most desired drug on the market because it's the strongest. So that's, I think, the problem I see, that kind of fundamental problem I see with Safe Supply. And what ends up happening, like I said, is it's just getting turned back onto the street and getting sold really cheap to people who might not have as severe an addiction at that time, right? So it's kind of almost breeding a whole new, generation of opiate users, right? So that's the challenge I see with it right now.
Do you think it's doing more harm than good then, at least in its current state with the way the government has been rolling it out?
Yes, at its current state, I really see it doing more harm than good. Yeah, I wish I could say otherwise.
With Safe Supply not being the fix, I asked Blake then, what should be the end goal for people struggling with drugs?
Body. So really, I think the ultimate goal is to get individuals off of the drugs and have those supports in place. So
I asked Blake, what is our biggest problem around combating the overdose crisis?
So my big thought is not putting enough time and money into supporting people when they're trying to get off of a substance. So good example, detox supports. If somebody wants to go to detox, there's typically 4 to 6 week wait And so if somebody's actually, at that precipice of making a change, I want to do something about it. My thought is if we could give them more real-time supports, that if someone says, hey, I want to get off of this, I need to change. If we could support that person in real time, like maybe that day or that week, we would see so many more people opting to change. And also if we can actually have supports in place to keep people supported, so, going from detox to treatment to having supports in second stage, we would see so many more people enter and try to do recovery. But right now, it's just such a hard journey to try to seek those supports for an individual.
Do you think those supports just aren't as available as they should be? Do you think that nonprofits have been given the correct amount of resources to try to solve this problem in the best possible way?
I think there's, it's kind of an issue of, not just the not-for-profits, but I would say, indentured within Island Health and indentured within the health authorities, there's not enough supports. So good example, our detox services is a 7-day detox run through Island Health. It's a 7-day program, and to just get into that 7-day program to detox medically, we have 20 beds for this population. Right, so if you do the math, it's just crazy. So it creates a crazy bottleneck. And what they actually start doing is they'll say, pretty much if you're not going to die, you're trying to detox. So if you're not basically an alcohol user, your access to detox is pretty much not going to happen. If you're a crack or meth user, no chance. That's your primary substance, there's no chance in getting those supports. And for me, my thought is always, you try getting off of crack and meth on your own without those supports in place, right? So, so for me, it's a resource issue. If we pumped money into it and had, a place that had enough beds to, meet the needs of everybody, 100%, we'd see a lot more flow and a lot more supports being given. So.
Do you think that's the real issue, is the fact that there's a lot of these disconnected programs and a lot of this disconnect between this, as you talk about this this pipeline of care, if you will, where it's a lot of these disconnected programs that are all doing this different thing, whether or not it's the private sector or the public sector or whatever, it's all just very disconnected and all kind of just trying to solve the problem as like a bunch of strands floating in the air.
I think that's a great way of putting it. I think there's a lot of gaps in care, and the gaps in care, especially for someone in addiction, is killer. So if you have let's say you finally have the courage to do something about your substance use, and you're going to have to wait 4 weeks to get into detox, and then you're going to have to go home or go to the streets and wait for another 2 months before you can get into residential treatment. Yeah. And then there's no guarantee that you're going to come back to a supportive, sober environment. It's already an incredibly daunting thought and prospect to try to get off of substances. So with all those gaps that are coming, it makes it really seem insurmountable. So a lot of people don't even start. They say, you know what? I'm not going to even try because we know what's coming, right? Or let's say someone tries and then they hit this gap, they go to detox, and then they end up back on the street waiting for treatment. They're not going to try again, right? So you get a lot of people who are discouraged from actually making that attempt. So everybody that you see on the street, there's this thought that they want to be there. That's not the case at all. They don't want to be there. They feel like they have no other options at this point. And to a certain extent, they're right, because we do have all this disjointed care. The money is going out there. It's just not getting really diverted. It's not being coordinated well enough to create this continuum of care that's really necessary to protect someone throughout and cushion them throughout that whole transition, right? So my thought is someone should be able to say, I want this help. And we say, we got you. We're going to get you into detox, and don't worry about it. We're going to get you here. Don't worry about it. You're going to go to treatment after that. Don't worry. We're going to get you back to second stage. And if up along the way, don't worry, we're going to start you over again. We're going to make this work, right? So that would be the dream. Right now, it is far from that, right? So that's what I see, and I think so. And as long as someone's using, they're in danger of overdose, one way or another. We can try as best we can to put on as many Band-Aids and try to keep people protected. At the end of the day, someone that's using hard illicit drug, it's gonna, whether or not they have a safe supply coming in or not, they are going to be in danger of an overdose, right? And or really substantial medical crisis.
Tune in next time where I continue my conversation with Blake. Thank you for listening. Big thanks to Blake for sitting down with me. Special thanks to Jen Scott, Eric Fine, Mark Neufeld, Joanna Linker, and Graham Mitchell. This has been Future Considerations. I'm Dan Fine. Till next time.